Hello everybody. My goal today is I'm going to try to mount my cab onto this frame here. I've got a few things I want to do. This is going to be a trial fit. The big thing is to get the front cab mounts in place. They're going to be around here. That front graft, I had to remove everything, and we do have the back cab mounts and the mid cab mounts in the original location. So I need to do alignment on the cab along with the tilt front end, make sure everything lines up correctly, and then fabricate the front cab mounts. I also want to figure out what I'm going to do for my shift arrangement. I have the original 1994 Mustang GT floor shift that I could use. It's cable operated. This is a AODE transmission, but I'm thinking about using the column shifter. I have the original GM column shift out of the 79 Nova steering column. Lockhart makes a kit to connect the two together, so I might do that, or maybe make my own version of it. I've got to make that decision when I get the cab in. If I do the floor shift, I'll have to build a little console, which might be good for me because I need to still mount the ECU for the engine and also the transmission controller, because this is electronically controlled transmission, so it has a standalone. This will give me a chase way for all the wiring, but I'll make that decision when I put it on there and mock up the seats and the steering column. Also, I recall from when I used to drive this thing that the steering column seemed a little long. Put the steering wheel up close to your chest. I'm going to maybe see if there's a way I could shorten the steering column. We'll look at that when we get it all mocked up. But before I do that, I've got a few things I need to take care of in the cab. I've already installed the upper seat belt shoulder mounts in the cab. They were something I had purchased a few years ago. Never got around to putting them on. The company's out of business now, but they're made out of heavy gauge steel. I think maybe 12 or 14 gauge. And they needed a little bit of fitting, but I welded them in. They look really solid, so I'm happy with that. Also, when I removed the door hinges, just like probably everybody else with an old truck like this, had trouble getting the hinge screws out. The top ones I did get out. I broke almost every one of them, but I was able to weld nuts on the broken bolts and pull them out. The two top hinges, one on each side, I got all of them out, but the bottom ones were real bare, and I snapped off all of those as well. But I kept snapping them off as I welded the nuts on. They were really corroded very badly. What I ended up doing was cutting the cage on the back of the retention cage on the back of the door jamb, and remove the plates entirely. But as you can see, the back side of these things very corroded. So even when I did weld nuts on here to pull them out, I was able to loosen them up, but as I tried to pull them out, they bound up with the rust on the back. Couldn't cut them off from the back. So anyhow, I got them out. What I plan to do now is sandblast everything up and now weld the nuts on the back side, and then cut these out flush with the plate and then screw them out. Either that or I'll make new ones. These hinge mounting plates just float in the door jamb. They're retained by like a little sheet metal spider on the back side to keep, and I think that was just during the initial assembly of the car at the factory. The ones on the bottom, to get these out, I had to go in and pretty much remove that cage or pry it loose. You can see it down in there. I chiseled it, I pried it apart, and had to use a body saw to cut one side to get those out. After I'm done removing the broken bolts, I'll put them back in there and just kind of whack that cage back over there. It's nothing you even need. I can reach my hand in there and hold that plate when I assemble the hinges. But I'll do something with it. All right, I've got everything sandblasted as good as I'm going to do for now. What I'm going to do is, you can see this is the area that was facing out where the heads were broken off and where I tried welding on nuts and they kept snapping off. That's not going to want to come through. It may be so distorted it won't screw through that plate. So I'm going to cut these off flush with the plate, grind them flush so that there's no distorted or rusty threads above the plate. And then there might be enough, there's probably enough meat there. I could just put vice grips on the back side and screw them through out the back. If I need to, I could still weld a nut on there. Get back in a minute. All right, I was able to save these hinge plates after I cut off the front mangled part of the broken bolts. I was able to put vice grips on the back side of the thread that was rusted up, and after heating it up a little bit, they broke right loose and came out very easily. I'll put a coat of primer on these and save them for when I assemble the cab. All right, I'm getting ready to set the cab on top of the frame and do a trial fit. I've got my engine hoist. I have a bracket that I had made before, bolts to the front of the seat mounts in the cab, and then I use a couple of tie straps to stabilize it. And I'm going to pick it up there. I have a big piece of iron inside there to balance the cab, so when I lift it, it doesn't flop around. All right, I've got the cab in place, and I've got brand new mounts for the cab. These are new rear cab supports, and I've got the bushings here for the mid cab supports and new bolts. So I'm going to do the bolt it down on the back, because they kind of swivel to help, kind of floats on the rear, and I'll put the mid cab supports, and then try to get the front of the cab aligned with the frame, and also with the front end. I'll have to jockey that around. But these are where the front cab mounts will be, because of that subframe graft is just floating in space there. So after I get everything in line, I'll fabricate a stand up here, and it'll be a little lower than the cab, and then I can shim it to get final height, so I've got to fabricate that. All right, I'll get to that. All right, I've got the cab mounted to the frame now with the back mounts and the mid mounts. I haven't made the front mount perches yet on the frame. I'll probably do that tomorrow. I was a little anxious to mock up the seats and the steering column to see what I've got here. I've got to add some holes in the firewall for wiring to go through. That's why I was mocking it up now. But one of the things I wanted to check was what I'm going to do with the shift linkage. I've got the GM steering column. You can see how far out it sticks. I'm not really too keen on that. It really comes pretty close to your chest. I'd like to see if I could shorten that somehow. Might have to take it apart and see what I've got. Yeah, the column shifter, I think the linkage would be pretty easy. On the column here, you've got the lever, and I don't know if you can see straight down there is the linkage for the transmission. So it's a straight shot. I might be able to just put a heim joint on each end of a rod and make a link arm, get the ratio correct, and might work like that. The other option I have this floor shifter that came out of the donor car. It was a 94 Mustang GT. and it's cable operated, so I have a lot of options as far as where it could actually mount. I'd have to probably build a small console or something to mount it between the buckets. I don't know if I want to do that, eat up floor space. Also, it's a pretty short shifter. I could either build the console up to bring the shifter up, or this does have a locking button on it. I think I could take this, cut this tube apart and make an extension on it, length, and make a longer handle. I'm not sure on that yet. That's some of the decisions I have to make yet. Also, I don't know if you see, I've got these bucket seats. I got these at the pick apart out of a, I forget what year, 2000-ish Dodge Dakota. And they're pretty comfortable, and they seem to fit pretty nice. I'll probably leave the upholstery just like it is. I'm not looking for perfection, just something decent. Anyhow, I think that's going to be it for today. I'll probably work on it tomorrow, New Year's Eve, and hopefully I'll have some progress to make next week for another video. Anyhow, everybody have a Happy New Year, and thanks for watching.